Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is what we're going to be working on. I've got a lot of projects, but I picked this up. It's a Case 310. I believe it's a 50s model, 50 something. If you look them up online or on YouTube, there's a bunch of them. They're like a vanilla color and a black, I believe. But let's see, we got the hood over here, or the grill. We got the hood here, missing some parts. This came with the bell housing, and in the background I have two engine blocks that came with it, and neither of them are original. Missing a lot of parts. One's just a bare block with no sleeves. This one's got sleeves, missing a valve cover, a distributor, water pump. It's missing all kinds of stuff. So we have a few options to go with this, and I'm going to try option number one first. I picked up this good running Continental flathead 4-cylinder out of a forklift. It should be around pretty close to the same year, not the same year, but the same era as that. The only thing with this, I'm going to have to make a bell housing adapter. Down there is the original bell housing off of the crawler, and the one that was on this Continental was quite a bit larger. But with that all stripped off, back here on the floor is the one from the Continental. You can see even further distance away it's a lot larger. But we'll try to make a adapter plate for this. We're going to see how this goes. Probably use the original starter off of this bell housing to start it. That's option number one, which we're going to try to do because I don't want the engine to have too much power and ruin the transmission in this thing, because they didn't originally come with a high horsepower engine. I think they were like maybe 47 horse. Then again, I'm not a Case enthusiast, so alright, so option number two, not the lawnmower. Option number two, quite a lot more power, is a Ford 300 inline 6. I'd have to get an adapter for the rear bell housing of this, like you'd have on a I guess chipper? Yeah, chipper. All it is a plate that goes in the back here and has an output shaft style flange on it, and you still use the stock clutch, but it bolts on the back of this bell housing, and it almost gives you like a flat plate. You can bolt whatever, a drive shaft or whatever too. So that's option number two. We don't want to go this option unless number one really sucks. But this crawler, I believe the lady's father that I bought off of had actually gone through the undercarriage. It appears to have all newer bolts, and what's not new has been, I guess, repainted. Everything looks good. The rear sprockets look awesome. But I've got the cylinders with it. I've got the, I don't know, cast arms that hold the cylinders. All the blades here, all the controls. It's missing the gauges, but I have the hydraulic controls for the blade. What's good about this Continental engine is it actually has a hydraulic pump built on the side of the engine, so if I get this to work, it'll be good. I can just use the hydraulic pump off this to run up to the hydraulic valving on this, and that's a hydraulic tank. So it's not going to be that big of an issue trying to match a pump up on the front of the inline 6 to 300 if I was to use that. Those engines I got, like I said, they're pretty rough. They've been sitting out a long time. This one's got sleeves in it. This block doesn't have sleeves. This one's got a head. Don't know if it's correct head. This one does a water pump. This one's got a water pump. This one I believe is more the style that came out of the little crawler here, because it's got a spot for the pump to mount, which I also got with it. And this one is the old style hand crank. So but we're going to try to make something work. Hopefully we can make a template off that bell housing, use that flywheel on the Continental engine, and put something together. We'll see. I'm no machinist. I do have a lathe, but we'll get some stuff worked together here. But this crawler, other than that, it appears that the brake bands have been replaced. It's got some leaks here and there, but overall, for sitting as long as it has been, it's in decent shape. And there's the number, the GI case number and company off of it. and it is 310. But it needs a little this, a little that. Whoa, holy shit. But here it is, guys. This is the next project. I have a hard time filming things like I should for the channel. I kind of get ahead of myself, and then I get some stuff done, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to film that. But, well, stay tuned, and we'll be working on this next couple weeks. And I've also got if you own a diesel, like I've got a 6-liter Power Stroke, and it's deleted, and it takes a long time to heat up. I got another video I'm going to post. I bought a diesel park heater, and if you guys like your vehicle warm and defrosted as soon as you go out to it, these things are pretty good. They heat your whole truck up on the inside only in about 5 minutes. But then you can, let's just say you come out, like I work 16 hours a lot of times, I'll come out and it'll be negative 12 degrees out, and I don't want to sit in that truck and just let it sit there and idle and idle and idle. I mean, the engine will warm up enough to drive off, but the cab is freezing. So I'll do a quick video on the diesel park heater and how I installed it on my Power Stroke. But guys, stay tuned. This is what I have for now. I'm just starting the planning stages, but there'll be more to show, or more to come here shortly. All right, here we go. So this piece is off of the Continental engine. It was a spacer, which has the correct pattern for the crankshaft. So what we did was, this shiny section here, my lathe's not that great, stuck out maybe ½ an inch, or maybe 3/8 of an inch out past this flange, out this direction. So I turned that off, or turned it down, measured the inside diameter of this flywheel, and I turned it down to make a nice lip that centers. This now is centered in the middle of that flywheel. So what I plan on doing is going through and making sure the holes aren't so close. Well, actually, they're pretty far away. So what's going to be tricky is when I start to drill, it's going to be almost getting into this. So I'll start off with a small drill bit, and I'll drill them progressively larger. And I'll drill these out in this, and the bolts will come through this flywheel, through this, into the crank of the Continental engine. But it should work out pretty good. And then all we need to do is make a plate to mount to the back of the motor that attaches to the bell housing of the case. The only hard part about it is making sure this flywheel is the same amount away from the back of the engine of the original, so it fits, or so the starter engages correctly. That's the only hard part. I wish I could have got something a little thinner than this. I don't know. I still may be able to use this as a template to drill the holes on this, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I think that's a 12-inch lathe, so I don't think this will fit. But I'd like to be able to just go ahead and turn this flange down, maybe another less than 3/8, just down to match this right here, so it'll fit tight on the bell housing, or not bell housing, but the rear flange of the engine there, the crankshaft flange. That's what we have right now. So, like I said before, this was on the engine. I turned it down the lathe, got a shoulder on there, put over on the flywheel, the original flywheel, and then I used some I guess indexing dowels, or they're like center punches. You put them in the hole and they'll find the center, and I popped around, drilled them through. So I'll get some longer bolts that go through, and we'll hold this right on the center of the crankshaft. Got a piece of plexi. This doesn't really work out too well. And bolted her down, got her centered up, bolted her down, and I took, let's pull this off. I took a socket that was really snug on there. I took a bolt, turned it down just a little bit, and then turned it to a point where it fit snug inside the socket, and then I tapped it on that shaft. So when I laid the plexi down, this has got a little bit of room in it, and I wiggled it back and forth because the bearing has a little bit of play to make sure I found the dead center of it. And once we did that, we pushed the plexi down on it, tapped it a few times with a hammer. Gives me it's that white mark in the middle of the screen there. That's where the center of that is. So now I'll take the diameter of this, I'll trace around on that, center that up. I'll cut the hole, and then we'll start worrying about, the plexi's not going to be what I have, I'm just using that as a template. Find the center, I'll get it lined up with this, we'll put it on there, and we'll mark those bolt holes. Then we'll be able to transfer it to a piece of steel, probably a little over half inch steel, or maybe a 1/4 inch. I don't think 1/4 inch is going to be thick enough for what we need to, how far we need to space out. Once we get those two transferred over, I can scribe and drill out the holes for the starter. I still got to get a starter for the original engine to work with this, but that's where we're at. Alright guys, we're switching gears just a little bit. I'm going to take a break on the engine swap because I got to find some parts. Had a little problem with the this thing doesn't go very well when it's got this wide fisheye. Had a little problem with finding some parts. I got to find a different starter, so I went ahead and I started went and turned a couple of these bars down. The bar stock I had was probably a little less than 1/4 inch too big for these, so I went ahead and turned a bunch of these down. I'm going to weld a piece of thick rebar across the top at an angle, like a T-handle for it. But we got a bunch of these there. This one goes in there. That one, that one, that one. Which on this blade, if you've never seen these before, you pull this pin, you put it down there, and you pull that pin up here, and then it allows the whole blade to angle, and the blade follows this angle, and there's different slots on the other side to do that too. But we're coming to a little bit of an issue here with the motor swap, because this is going to be extremely hard to see. It's not going to pick it up on the camera. I've got, on this piece of plexi, I got the original bell housing drawn on this, which is the small holes, and then I've got the bell housing, the orange one back over there off the back of that engine, and I've got it laid out on here perfectly straight so the shafts will line up. But the problem I've got here is, you can kind of see the circle. This is where the starter is going to be for the bell housing, and the orange bell housing over there, the original. And I just don't have enough room on the side of the block for a big starter. And I have a couple of them laying around. I got one off of a Yanmar diesel, and it's a little smaller than the original. It's still a little too big. My buddy's got one, or my buddy's got a bunch of them in his shop. And I'm going to go by and dig through his starter box and see what we can find. He said there's a bunch of Mazda starters he's got that are really small, a little larger than a pop can, probably the size of that spray clean or a brake clean there can. So we're going to go over there and try to get some, dig through his box and see what he's got. Until then, I'm just going to try to catch up on small parts getting done on this, and probably take some more stuff apart. All right, guys. I know I've been doing a lot of talking about making a bell housing adapter for the one on the motor, or that originally came in the tractor, the crawler, and to this Continental. So I was looking online, I couldn't find a Continental bell housing that was decent priced, because I am cheap as shit. So we ordered, this may not be the top of it, I don't know. It's packed in there pretty well, we'll see. So I ordered a bell housing after doing a little bit of a little bit of looking into it, a Massey Harris 30 in like 44 tractor came with this same Continental engine. So what do we got here? We just packed anything we could in there, a little trash, some bags. Man, it looks like this guy packed a little everything he had in here, which is, I'm not complaining about it. But here's the bell housing. It looks like may or may not fit this engine. I don't know. We're gonna find out. But this will be a little easier to adapt because it's more the right size, and the starter is going to be on the right side. So let's get this thing out of here. All right, so I got it out of the box. This is a bell housing off of a Massey Harris 30 series tractor. I'm still going to do some trimming on the original mounting plate of the Continental, but the two bolt holes in the top line up. On the lathe, I made a bushing to go in between the I don't know what you call this, like a jack shaft in between the engine that goes into the flywheel of the engine, which takes up all that space and lines them up. And these two top bolts that go into the block here lined up perfectly, and there's no resistance at all other than what the old grease inside the shaft is. So it looks like this is going to go pretty well. I was really hoping, I ordered the flywheel to go with this that actually has the 5 or 6 bolt pattern this Continental engine has, where the original crawler engine had the center bolt pattern, which is a 4. So I'll have to order a starter to match this bell housing, and I got a few other things I need. On transport, I broke the distributor off. It slid over in the truck, broke the distributor off, and of course I need to get a carburetor for it, which is not a big deal. They're not too awful expensive. And then we're going to need to trim all of this plate down, find a different way to do the exhaust, and then we're going to take it over there and fit it in. The reason why I wanted this Continental, and I probably have said it before, but it's got a governor already built on it. It's got a hydraulic pump that's built on the engine that works. So I'll need to get some things closed up, possibly power wash it off. But where the starter was originally on this motor was right down here, and the bell housing that came off the crawler, the case 310, put the starter right up here, and there's just no room. It's got a not an overflow tube, but I guess for your blow-by, tube that goes down for blow-by, and all of that was in the way, and a 1/2 inch of the block was in the way. So here's what it is so far, and hopefully I'll get that flywheel for that in the next couple days. I think it's due in the 8th, which makes no sense because I ordered them both the same day from the same seller, so that makes no sense at all. But that's where it's at right now.